Okay, hopefully third time is the charm. Hello everyone, and welcome to your week 3 Monday morning breakfast bite. Now this week we're going to be talking about trademarks, so we're going further into intellectual property. Last week you looked at copyright, briefly at trademarks, you looked at trade secret, and you looked at patents. Now we're looking at another category of intellectual property, which is trademarks. But before we get to that, I want to go over the team deliverable, which is due this week. And this week it's a hypothetical scenario that you and your team are creating together. And the hypothetical scenario means that it's based on fictitious facts, facts that aren't actually in existence. So do not use real company names, so we don't want to do that. But in doing so, I want you to make sure that it has some technology-based scenario, whether it is a contract dispute, whether it is when I say contracting, I mean like employment contracting dispute, whether it's a licensing type of dispute, which is also a form of a contract, whether it is based on some type of intellectual property infringement, whatever it is, but it has to have some element of e-commerce. It has to somehow relate to technology, whether it's creation of a computer program or utilization of a computer program, or whether it's doing business over the internet. It doesn't matter to me. It has to have some online component and some technology component to it. Now, with that said, remember that we all have learned things in our lives, whether it's from the news, whether it's from case studies from other classes, whether it's from our professional life, and we bring all that together, we merge it together in order to create this hypothetical scenario. And also remember, everybody needs to contribute to this scenario and developing it, because it is a team project. So I want everybody on board for it. Now, when you create it, you're going to create it, it should be no less than 1 page in length. And yes, it can be double spaced, but no less than 1 page. And actually, if it is double spaced, it probably should be more than 1 page. I would say at least 1.5 pages in length. Your first paragraph is going to discuss the parties involved, who they are, what they do, where they're located. Then after that, you're going to go into specifics, and you do want to be specific in the facts, because your facts, all of that is that's all going to tell the story. And your scenario is basically the facts of the situation and what took place, how it evolved, what happened after it evolved, what happened during the course of the whole process, and then how you got to the point where somebody wants to sue somebody else. Now, you're developing this with 1 or 2 issues only, and those are the legal questions that have to be resolved. With that said, though, you're not going to state what the legal questions are in your fact scenario, but your fact scenario is going to lead the reader to understand what the issue is. That's why developing the facts of the scenario are so important. If you have questions about it, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'd be happy to provide more information to everybody, and we'll go from there. Also, we may want to go ahead and set up a WebEx meeting this week. I'm probably going to send an email out to everybody regarding that as well. Now, with all of that said, let's talk a little bit about trademarks. Oh, don't forget you have your week 3 Jeopardy quizzing due this week, and you can take that several times. Do remember, you are going to be taking it as though you're a contestant on Jeopardy, which means you have to use the term "what is" at the beginning of all of your answers, and a question mark at the end. Otherwise, you won't get credit for that answer, even though it's right. And please don't email me and say, "Oh, I got everything right," but no, I'm not going to go back and I'm not going to regrade them. You guys need to do it in the proper format if you don't do it the first time, okay? If you have problems, though, do let me know. You also have your discussion, week 3 discussion that's due. So now with that stuff done, we're moving on to trademarks. With trademarks, you have to look that there are 5 categories of trademarks. Do you get automatic protection for every category? No, absolutely not. You've got generic marks, descriptive marks, suggestive marks, arbitrary, and fanciful. The last 2 categories, arbitrary and fanciful, are the ones that give you automatic protection. So think about it. When you think about fanciful, when you think about arbitrary, you're thinking about something that doesn't necessarily relate to something else. When we're talking about arbitrary, like apples and computers, that did not relate. At one point in time, that did not relate to each other. But now it does. So we've got apples and computers, and those 2 now are synonymous with Macintosh. So Macintosh at one point in time, we would never have related to a computer. Of course, they were one of the starters of all computers. But nonetheless, that's what we think when we think arbitrary. Also, when we think fanciful, think about Target, think about the dog that's the target dog with the target around his eye. That's fanciful. Things like that are fanciful, and that's going to get you automatic protection. But if you're using something generic and you're using a generic term, you can't think that just because you say it in a particular way or it's written in a particular way that you're going to get automatic protection for it. Because if it's generic, and you can't switch and change the fact that it's generic. So you're not necessarily going to get protection for that. So think about that when you're going through trademark, because trademark is very important, and it's very important to conducting business online, because our trademarks identify a business. They identify sometimes the type of business that it is, which would then be a service mark. But they're very, very important, because if they are infringed in any way, if somebody takes that trademark and utilizes it in such a way that it disparages the mark, you've got a problem, right? Because maybe you have a wholesome company, but an unwholesome company is trying to utilize that mark in a way that is not appropriate. Or you also may have a situation where the mark is being used in such a way that it diminishes its meaning to the general public, and now it doesn't mean what it used to, and so you lose the right to that mark or the emphasis of that mark. So think about those, because it's important, because our trademarks become part of our marketing, our overall marketing, so we don't want those to diminish in any way. If you have questions, again, don't hesitate to contact me. I hope you guys have a great week 3. I know we're quickly moving through the material, but I'm available for you if you need me. Ciao.